So quick introduction to Fiona. She is a home stager, a extremely talented home stager, extremely articulate in what she does. The service quality, her interaction with clients is absolutely polite, and I can't even begin to tell you guys. I've been in homes that are, I'm a little bit mortified by them. And Fiona walks in very calmly, smiles, still giving compliments to people where I would be saying, like, what the hell is going on here? Get the cleaners right away. But she will like politely walk through the property, which is very important to have in a home stage. And we're going to get to the importance of that to your business. But I decided to start off the session with these wonderful pictures out of a Collingwood new build that I had listed for my clients, and the quality of work and presentation, you can see it looks like straight out of a magazine. This is a 1,300 square feet regular townhouse, and look at the drama that she's created. She walked into this property. Fiona, I'm going to let them know this. She drove up to Collingwood. She walks into the property. The appliances are still in cardboard and styrofoam, and that's how she received the house. And within a couple of hours, Fiona left the property looking like this, just to have a good idea. This is another property that Fiona did for me. This was on Salerno. We got multiple offers for this house. When I walked into this house 3 months prior to listing this house, it was not looking like this. But the positive work that came out of it for our clients, and that's the end goal, right? Like this is your business card forever, because these pictures go online, guys, and they stay representative of your work. And it is the fact that your clients are going to benefit with it a lot. So I'm gonna switch back to Fiona now and stop sharing my screen, and we'll go to the fun questions that we have set up for all of you. So good afternoon. Hello, Fiona. Fiona, you want to tell us a quick intro of your company, when you started, how you got into the business?
Yes. Hi, Sabiha. Hi, everyone. I can't see everyone, but I know you're there. So nice to meet you all. My name, of course, it's Fiona Gajadar, and the company's called Empress Designs. We have been in business a little over 4 years now, and I'm a certified professional staging consultant as well as a professional stager. So myself and my team, actually, I have a couple of girls that work with me now full time, and we just have such a passion. All of us actually have such a passion for this business that it doesn't matter how many houses we do, we still look at them uniquely, and they're all individual. And I love to meet the clients and work along with the clients as well. So it's been going extremely well. We are busy, and I'd love a chance. If you have questions, let me know. And I'd love to get to know each and every one of you a little bit more as well.
Right. So today I wanted to put a little bit of a spin on the questions and start off with just what's in fashion, what's the new trends. When we walk into homes, it's really good for us actually as realtors, and even our homes. I feel, Fiona, what do you think? Because I keep pushing our realtors to network, to entertain, to meet people. And I think our homes are a little bit representative of what they can hope for as well. I always feel that. So tell us about what you're seeing in terms of the trends in design in interiors these days. What are the colors? What are people looking at?
Well, Sabiha, the thing is, the trends, I don't always follow trends. I like to see what's out there, but I think it's so nice when we can put our own twist in everything. And the key thing is, design trends are always a little bit different, of course, from staging trends. So when it comes to the staging, no matter what design trends are happening out there, staging always seems to be, it kind of keeps a little bit consistent with a few things in particular is color. Color is one of the most important thing in staging, and everyone has their own take on this. Some people like the pops of colors, some people like more neutral colors. So I actually tend to work with my clients as well as my realtors and the agents, and I try to find out, what it is that they want, because ultimately I want to meet everyone's goal as well. However, I know that there's certain things I've got to look out for as a stager that I know is best, and I won't change on those things. So when it comes to the trends right now, we're in the spring season, so you're going to see a lot of those colors coming back out again. When it's the winter season, it seems to be a little bit more calmer. You find a lot more whites, warm textures. Textures are very important in the winter, just to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. When you walk into a place, for example, and you see a nice maybe fur throw on a couch, that really speaks to you in the winter time. White, black, very grounding colors, always very basic. You can never go wrong with whites and black in staging. They're almost a necessity. For the spring, I do find a lot of greens are popular, light blues, very, very nice and calming for the season. And we use all the colors actually. Yellow especially is another good color for spring. And it doesn't have to be anything bright. They can be pastel tones, just keeping it nice and simple and subdued. Sometimes you might put a little bit extra color in there. But, and then as you approach into summer now, you're going to see a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of aquas. For example, if we're doing a girls' room, you're going to bring out some pinks, pink undertones. Blush is very popular as well. So that's pretty much winter, spring, summer, fall. You've got the what I call the oat colors and the sandy colors. These are the colors that really are so tried and true. They work each and every time. No matter what the trends are happening, they always work in staging.
You're so right about that, Fiona, because guys, Fiona knows that whenever I have a listing, I always push Fiona to keep very neutral, very light, very muted, because I really think that staging should be highlighting the house, not, making it look better, a better version of itself, not be taking away from it. Because at the end of the day, everybody knows that the staging is going to go away and the home will remain. So always the impact needs to be the star needs to be the home, and the staging needs to be. Whereas if you walk into my house, David is on the call, so I'm mentioning this. I remember when David came into my house 11 years ago, he mentioned this, that, or maybe I shouldn't say it, but my house is very baroque. There is a lot of color in my house. There's a lot of, hand knotted carpets and art, and each wall has like 50 pieces. So it's actually, Fiona, when you walk into my house, you'll be absolutely shocked, because it does not look like what my properties look like. And I think that is very, very important. And we're going to come to that in a second. That, guys, if you work with an established person like Fiona, who understands you and who can actually, this business is of relationship building. It is so important to have your people that you trust in your portfolio, that you repeatedly use, because it becomes your signature. It becomes the way you are practicing should be. Anybody, I know that none of my clients will ever complain about Fiona or her team going in. They're going into people's homes, so you have to be very careful who you work with. Just like a legal team or your home inspector, you need to be sure about their service quality needs to match yours. Correct, Fiona? Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very important indeed. And I came from a background, previously I was in banking as well as heavily in customer service. And I think second to staging, my passion really is customer service. I am so keen on that. I cannot tell you. And it follows me everywhere I go. It doesn't matter what company I'm with, what business I'm into. Customer service always seems to be my number one goal. And the business just follows after that. So staging naturally just blends right into that, because I get to deal with so many customers every day, as well as professional agents and so on and so forth. So I highly agree with that.
And you're very good with actually working with the realtor, because I've seen multiple stagings of yours, and like you work with me, like you actually hear me out and kind of see things from my perspective, which might be slightly different from another realtor's way of working, right? So that's very important, because you kind of are not like rigid as to, nope, this is how it's going to be. Or I think maybe you have enough inventory to actually work with different properties in different ways, right? And different properties can have a completely, like, I feel there's a big difference between the Kirby Collingwood property versus the Mississauga property that you did. They were not exactly the same, right?
That's
And I
right.
think because of also the house, and you know what I felt was great is that you also work very well with what is the existing furniture and stuff that the clients have, and end up making it look really, really good. So let's go to my next question is preparing a home for a listing. So this is something I want you to give pointers to our realtors as to what can they take home, where they walk into a listing, and what should they be looking into, um, just in terms of staging.
Well, this is a loaded question, Sabia, because there are so many factors that goes into what to talk about when you walk into that property that's going up for listing. But to highlight a few of the very important ones that can always get you a lot of bang for your buck once the client is engaged in it and also doing the work. So number one, it's always color. A lot of times you go into homes, if they haven't been painted in a long time, the colors are off. We want to get those neutral colors going. So painting the entire home is always a very, very good idea, almost a must, I must say. And if they cannot do the entire house, you've got to focus at least entryway, even your front door. It's the first thing people see. So your front door should always be in top-notch condition. Entryway and the main bedrooms, the main living area, the hallways, those are great places to at least get started. And you want to keep your colors neutral. So we always go with not white, but we're going with off-white. Sometimes there's the gray is very popular. It's kind of going, it's still popular, but it's going and coming every so often. But light gray is a popular tone. The sandy colors, not the old beige, darker beige color. It's the light sand colors, or just like an off-white as well will work. Now, once you've painted, lighting is my second thing. I am very, very keen on lighting. When I walk into a home, how it is lit actually gives me a vibe. And you know this, if you walk into a home and it's dark, there's very little natural light coming in, we've got to get more daylight coming into that place and brighter lighting. So, and again, a lot of these things can be preference. I have clients who will say, Fiona, we don't like the bright white lighting. They prefer the softer tones and the yellow lighting, and that's fine, as long as it's all consistent. So you want to keep your lighting consistent throughout the home. And if you want to go with the 3000, for example, which is the yellow lighting, I don't like it that much, I'll be honest. It's great for living in, but I think when you want to showcase a home and you're having multiple people come through, you really want to show that lighting as best as you can. So I recommend either 4000 or even 5000 daylight bright bulbs. And just to keep all of your lighting consistent for each room. So that's one. And it's so funny. I have clients that will say, no, you don't want this, but again, keep consistent and I can live with that. Not, different lighting in different areas. So we've got color, we've got
That's
lighting.
funny that you mentioned that, Fiona, because I've seen that even at Salerno, you made her change the light bulbs to white. And my house, like it's everything is even 3000, I find it's too bright. I stay towards like
Mhm.
2700,
Yeah.
which is, quite yellow. And that too in the dimmer, I like. But I have walked into houses in Salerno, is an old house built in 1975. I would have not thought that it would look good at all, but I actually understand where you're coming
You
from, because
liked
it
it.
gave it that clean look, which
Yeah.
is good for everybody, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. Sometimes the yellow lighting is fine with me. I don't mind it. And it's how the house looks as well, how new the home is, what colors are already there, are the floors dark, or the cupboards dark. All of those things make a difference. So I don't mind working with either or, but we got to get it right for the house that you're actually listing. That's the key thing.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest thing as well is your clients have got to always declutter. Decluttering is very, very important. Of course, get rid of anything that they're not going to be taking to their new home that they don't want. Throw out the junk and declutter, declutter, declutter every room and everywhere. That's my mantra. So, and I mean, I have a really nice way of going in, and I don't try to let the clients feel like, okay, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like that. It's more like getting them to understand the reason why I'm asking for this to be removed, or this to be decluttered, or this to be packed. And I had a client once, one of my first clients a long time ago, he could not understand. He had this beautiful case of CDs and record players, and he had them very nicely packed, but it was full. And I said, you got to pack all of these things. And it was as simple as, he didn't get it. He said, it's fine. That's what this bookcase is for. Or for example, clients that has a bookcase full of books, and this is what it's for. Yes, I understand. But when someone walks in, their eye automatically goes to multiple items on this bookshelf. Now they're distracted. They're no longer looking at things. They want to see what books you have. They want to read the labels. It's a whole distraction. So when you declutter these things and your bookcase now becomes more of a statement piece, or a decorative piece where you have a few books displayed nicely with a few ornaments or decorative pieces, wow, such a difference. At the end, he was floored. He said, Fiona, I get it now. I get it now. So decluttering is very important, and removing anything that is not necessary. On the day of staging, we also will come and fine tune your decluttering, because there's always things that people don't think of when they leave things around. So that's where we'll come in and we'll fine tune and edit any small items that needs to be. Now, for preparing your home as well, some people choose to do renos, of course. Renos is a big one. So if they do decide to do renos, sometimes we get involved. We help with the reno situation in terms of picking colors, materials, just giving ideas for countertops, matching cabinetry. That's a whole different service, but that is available as well. And if they don't do renos, sometimes they just choose to, change the flooring or do a bathroom, for example. Any small changes really does sometimes pay back a lot at the end. So I always recommend to, if they can do something for upgrades, do something for upgrades. The other thing I do want to mention are curtains. Curtains are a big killer of light. Blinds, I don't mind, because you can always roll them up. You can always open them and let the natural light in. Curtains, depending on the colors. So if the colors are too dark and heavy, I would ask them to remove the curtains. A lot of people don't think about that one, but it is definitely important to make sure that the curtains are correct in the space. So you want to have a lot of sheer, natural, light colors. White is always good, or light grays again, light sand colors, fine for curtains. Now, curb appeal, that's something that often gets overlooked when you're preparing your property for listing. In the summer versus the winter, you've got to really do different things for curb appeal. Now we're in spring, heading into summer. A lot of people overlook that the windows need cleaning. So I always recommend get your windows cleaned, because now you're going to be bringing in lots of light. It's so easy to see the dirt from the winter over the months. So that's something a lot of people don't think of, but window cleaning is important. For the summer, I recommend, if their driveway is not in good condition, get a driveway sealing. These little things, just hose down the driveway, power wash it, clean it up, and get it sealed. It makes such a difference when someone drives up to your house. And again, for the summer, do your mulching, your gardening, get your weeds done, your grass cut, your lawns maintained. These little things go such a far way. Overgrown shrubs and trees, trim them, cut them. Very, very important. And for the winter, another thing that gets overlooked is the snow. People think, okay, if they don't clean the driveway properly, it's not such a big deal, or maybe their walkway or the stairs. But when you're showing a home in the winter and you drive up and you've got to put your foot into like a foot of snow, your feet into a foot of snow, it's not nice. you want to drive up and see a clean driveway. It should be shoveled. The walkway should be clear. You should have the salt down on the stairs just to make it easier for people coming in to see your home. It makes a big difference. You won't believe it. But these are just a few things that I want to say, are important when you are getting that property ready for listing. There's so much more, but these are some of the highlights. Sabiha, maybe you want to add another couple if you wish.
Actually, my follow-up question was the importance of the role and the benefits of bringing a stager into a listing presentation, because f- for me, it's like even the listing presentation, Fiona, that I've prepared for our realtors to show their clients, and it's kind of a generic PowerPoint where they can personalize it, put their own pictures, their own credentials, and all of that. It actually talks about the whole team. It talks about our lawyer partner. It talks about, we need to put you on there, the stager. So that and it also talks about the whole office team, right? It talks about Manny and Cassandra and Manjot and Arsh and David and myself, because guys, the it's so important for people. The whole point that we face all the time where people start talking about your earnings, your income becomes somehow a platform of conversation, even when you're going in servicing a buyer. And especially for listings, like the first question people like to, Fiona, ask us as realtors is, what are you going to charge as commission? Right? For them to understand the cost of actually listing a property and the value of having a realtor actually represent them, because it's a whole marketing platform that we bring on the table with us, right? So it's so important to have that kind of relationship with your partners, guys, like in the industry, so that when you walk in, it's not a one-man band in a, kind of disarray, disorganized way. Right off the bat, the client should start feeling slight intimidation, if you want to call it. It might not be the best word, but they should be in awe of you. There should be a presence to you. There should be a professionalism to you. And I think part of that is that. And Fiona, how have you felt like when a realtor walks in? I mean, just even the benefit of what you mentioned, right? That coming from me, oh, this couch is something you need to get rid of, without really understanding that that's the grandmother's couch, and that's the dearest thing in the home for the person, and your mind is in so many different places. The comparative market analysis, getting actually the listing, making sure that your client is feeling, and then, the stager is there having a look at these things and asking the right questions. What is the most important pieces in this home is one of those things. What have you bought recently is another thing. Are there any things that you really, really want to keep in the house while we're staging it? Right? So that you come from like we use words like decluttering. We use words like, but for me, I think it's really important to understand is that we talk about store away, storing it, putting it away, so that they understand that this is safe for you. And I think, Fiona, the biggest thing that I'm faced with is religious items in the homes. Sometimes I walked in with a big Quranic ayat on the walls, and I'm like, it's disrespectful because everybody will not understand what this is, so roll it up and put it away. Or a huge big crucifix on top of the child's bed, and I'm like, this might work for someone and totally not work for another person, and you want to make the house palatable to basically all cultures coming from where we are, right? So have you been on, Fiona, and how do realtors usually react to the thought of you going into the listing presentation, the main first point of contact with the client?
It's actually quite amazing. So when we go in with the listing presentation, sometimes they couple it with, of course, the consultation, which would, normally makes sense. So if they're coupling the listing presentation with a consultation, then the client's basically engaged for about 2 hours. The consultation could be anywhere between half an hour to an hour. And then of course the agent does his part with them after or before I get there. It is quite wonderful. I usually bring one of my stagers with me. She's my close assistant and we work very well together. And it is bringing in that presence that he's got a team, he or she has a team. And it really gives the client a sense of feeling as, you know what, I'm not just dealing with some random person that, just want to sell my house. This person has an invested interest in my well-being to sell this property. And, it just gives a whole different dynamic of how that comes across. So the professionalism is there with the agent, with the stager, with the assistant stager. Sometimes I've seen agents even bring, perhaps, they have a contractor that they know is going to help with some sort of contracting in the house, whether it be, pot lights, lighting, or getting the kitchen or the bathrooms or the floors ready, painting or something like that. And it really gives that client such a comfortable feel. Sometimes you're right, maybe the word could be a little intimidating, but it also lets them know that you're dealing with an agent who knows what he or she is doing. They know the business, they know what to expect, they know how to make your house ready for the market as best as possible. They're giving you the best advice. And because there's so much background that's involved, they're invested in you and they're invested in your property and making sure that they get the best for everyone that's involved. And it's really nice. I mean, we do it a lot, and whether it's a consultation following the listing presentation or it's at the same time, I think it has a big impact on that client.
Fiona, I know I didn't put this down, but I have a quick question to ask you. Um, Sometimes, the budget is really tight, and the agent nor the client are able to, not, I mean, willing obviously is a bigger word, um, but able to actually incur that cost and expenses for actually staging. Houses are sold in different circumstances, and it's possible. Do you provide a service where you would walk through and give advice on a cheaper cost for the realtor and the clients to be able to stage the or not really stage the property, but at least bring it to par for listing? Is there, some sort of service that you provide, which is a walkthrough and consultation?
Yes, that's a great question as well, Sabiha. So we're talking about occupied properties that, of course, are very different from vacant properties. And if they don't have the budget for what's needed to be done on that occupied property, let's say I suggest, and I always give my best advice. This is what you absolutely should do, and we cannot negotiate in this. This is a must. You must do A, B, and C for this property. Okay. D, E, and F, perhaps you don't have the budget to cover. It would be a nice to do, but it's not a must have. And so I go through these different levels with the clients so that they know what's priority first and then what they can tackle second. And if the budget doesn't include that, then that's fine. We'll work around it. And what I would normally do is I would say, okay, if I would like to replace your entire living room with staging furniture, I think that's the best idea here, and that's what's needed, but they cannot do the entire living room. Oh, right. So we'll bring in accessories only. So basically, we'll tailor and customize the job to the budget, what is presented to us, and we'll do the best that we can within the budget that we're given. So, I mean, there are times I know I've done more than what, because I can't seem to leave the house until I'm satisfied with how I feel it should look. And even if, there's something I've got to do more, I've got to do extra, it's okay. At least I've got that done and I feel happy about it. So yeah, we definitely would give a few different options.
So Fiona, I loved it that you mentioned actually going above and beyond sometimes of what you paid, basically, right? Because I'll tell you this, guys, I strongly believe this, and I was talking to one of my colleagues here, one of our realtors, and I said this that we are paying for leads a lot of times, right? To get buyer leads, to be able to do business, be able to do listing leads. It's sometimes okay. And a listing form, in my view, is an investment, right? You're right off the bat going out and actually talking to people about having a buyer is a best practice. I actually train realtors to do it. That we get somewhere around 6 buyers to 1 listing, Fiona. Okay,
Mhm.
so when you get a buyer, you basically take the buyer out, you get excited, you find the right spots, you find the right houses, you show them the beautiful house, you get the home inspection, deal is closed, nobody ever finds out that you have been so busy in the last 2 weeks, right? You have not had time to sit down. However, that does not boost your business. A listing boosts your business automatically because unfortunately we're not taking it out to our CRM, not talking to our other clients about this possible buyer, not putting it out on social media that, hey, I'm working with this person, so that you're actually tackling possibly a non-listed property as well. That's the best practice, but most people don't do that, right? They look it up on Treb, they go ahead, they book their appointments, and they start showing the house, and then they sell the house to the client. Lots of work involved. Nobody finds out about it. Listing, however, is forced right off the bat for sale sign goes on the curb. Okay? Do a staging, hopefully. Stager will put up you get a virtual tour done, the photography done. It goes on MLS, realtor.ca picks it up. Zola picks it up. So many other websites pick it up. Automatically, you're exposed, right? Your listing is exposed. You put it on social media, you put it on your Facebook. Sometimes the virtual tour company will do the same. Sometimes the stager will do the same. Now the word is going out like in a organically. You have been advertising now, right? Fiona, you and I were talking about that, actually
Yeah.
tagging, cross promoting, all of that stuff. So that automatically starts happening when you have a listing. Your brokerage pulls up the DDFs and the IDX from your listing is pulled up. All the realtors that are on website that are sharing the IDX from the brokerage are advertising your listing now, right? So
Mhm.
you have a soft marketing going around. Here is my thing is you got a listing, even if you're paying out of pocket, please present it properly because I cringe when I walk into properties or I see a listing, it's listed for $1.5 million and it's somebody's child's telephone that like they've not even moved the clothes from the kid's bed. The vacuum cleaner is in the middle of the room. They're bad pictures, badly presented listing. Don't do that to yourself. Forget your client. Like, don't even, I'm not even talking about the value that you bring into the client. If even if the client is not paying you enough, spend that money because that is the best marketing tool that you will have because it's forced out automatically from so many streams that invest in a good staging. When you invest in a good staging, invest in a proper virtual tour and a photography, right? What do you think, Fiona? Is it not worth our business actually to be marketing out there? A bar a
Absolutely.
service is not advertised out there. A listing is, and it stays forever. It makes um uh, a web print for you, right?
Yes.
So take it for that what it is.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Sabia. One of the things I tell my new agents is that I'm representing you with professionalism because I want you to also have that look. When people think about your name, there's so many things they're thinking besides just your name, right? When your name goes out on a listing, I need your property to look its best. And that's where I actually really care about how it looks. And it's not just I'm doing a job, I'm doing it because it serves a purpose for the realtor, it serves a purpose for the client as well. But I've always told my new agents when they come on board, I'm actually very invested in making sure that when your name goes on this listing, you feel proud about it, you feel good about it, you could share it with anyone, and you're happy. and your name gets out as, okay, someone who knows what they're doing, they're professional, they present their properties professionally. And that's something, even when I leave, when I do the stage, I don't just stage and leave and say, okay, well, whatever happens, happens now. And whatever they do, they do. No, I always leave the clients with tips, because again, they're showing that property for the next week or two or month or whatever it may be. So I always leave them with tips that, this is how you have to maintain certain things as best as you can, especially if they're living there. So it's very important, Sabiha, indeed.
Mm, absolutely. Um, I know we kind of already dabbled on this, but I just wanna talk to you, Fiona. What do you think are the benefits of working with same stager long term?
It's the relationship, like you said in the beginning. I love building relationships with people. And when you've worked with a stager long term, you get to know that person, you get to know how they work, how they operate. You can trust them. So you're building a level of trust each and every time you do another job with them. And you're able to, there's lots of times that I actually go to the client's house and the agent's not there for whatever reason, we cannot connect with the times. And I go and I represent the agent and myself and our team. And they trust me to do that, because they know that they're in good hands. Their clients are in good hands. So I think it's really the relationship that you're building over time. You know how the person works, and that trust factor, that is very important.
Mhm. Amazing. Staging versus not staging. Do you have any statistics available that actually show what the success of a home that is listed with proper staging in it? How do you feel about that?
Well, maybe I'm a little biased to answer that question, but of course, a stage home always represents, looks better, sells faster, and probably most likely gets you more money. There's a lot of stats on staging. I don't want to bore everyone with those stats today,
I think
but
there's some say something like 30%
yes, high
more.
level, high
Yeah,
level. I would say a stage home usually would give you anywhere between 73 to or 70 to 80% less time in the market. So you're going to have your home on the market definitely less than a non-staged property.
mm,
Also, your rate of return is anywhere between, let's say, 8 to maybe 12%, give or take. So there are definite benefits that you're going to sell faster, you're going to sell for more money, your client is happier, you're happier, and everyone wins.
absolutely. So I have two questions back to back, and I'm going to throw them both at you. Staging an occupied property versus a vacant one is one of them. And then
Mhm.
the hard one, which we are facing a lot of with the new tenancy rules and regulations that have come with COVID, and this has become a monster for all of us and everybody that has an investment property. How do you deal with a property that is tenanted?
Okay, so going back to your first question, I would say your first question, sorry, was well, let's do the rental properties actually, because that is that's a big one. Now, during COVID, it was hard enough to stage a rental property or an occupied property. Very difficult during those COVID years. Now, I think the rules they're a little bit lighter, of course, when it comes to COVID. But the problem that we have with rental properties are they're not invested in your property at all, in the homeowner. They're not invested in the sale. They don't care. So whatever goes. If you have really good tenants, fabulous, but not every one of them are going to be good
It's
tenants.
actually on the contrary because they've been paying lesser rent. So it's in their best interest that because they know you're an investor, you're not going to move into it. The new
Right.
purchases are made, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so it's actually in their benefit that the property doesn't sell.
I think you're right. And I mean, if you have a great tenants, it works out. It works out well. But there are the key factors are, they're not always putting in the time and effort like a homeowner would that's living at that property to maintain the house once it's staged, and to also do what it takes to prepare that house for staging. So I've gone in with a few agents to a lot of different tenanted properties, and I treat it the same way like I do with a homeowner. I gently tell them what I need, what is expected. And I'm sure as well the agent has that conversation with them and the homeowner as to why this is important for them also to participate and be part of it. But it's really choosing the right things that we can still highlight that home with, but sometimes it doesn't always give us the opportunity to just be lavish the way that we normally would. We have to be a little bit more careful as to what products we choose, what we choose to do to the property, the things that we're asking them to remove or declutter as best as possible. So it's a bit of walking on eggshells with tenants, but we definitely get around that. We still get around that. For the most part, I've had a lot of success with tenants.
Right, right. Going back to the first one, which was staging an occupied property
Versus,
versus a vacant one.
yes.
Obviously, a vacant one is a lot easier for you, but I think a little bit extra costly for in terms of the amount of rental equipment, I mean, or rental pieces that you would need. What do you think about that?
Yes, cost is definitely a factor. So a vacant home will definitely cost more because let's say it's a 3-bedroom property, one living, one dining area. That's definitely different if we look at the same home that's occupied. And sometimes they can be similar because if we almost take out all of their furniture and we were to stage it with staging furniture, the cost can be very similar. When it comes to doing the job, it's always, always harder to work with any property that is occupied, whether tenanted or by the owner itself. It is not easy. They have kids, so you have to take into consideration how old are the kids? Are they young? Are they grown? They may have pets, 1 or 2. That's another thing that we have to take into consideration, and it really determines what we can do in that property as well. So while we may want to achieve a 10 out of 10 in that property, in my eyes, we may have to settle for an 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10, simply because we're restricted with pets or young children, or, they cannot do certain things because the family needs to use those items. And of course they can't use staging furniture. So it's always a challenge, but I always say, I think, and not, I'm generalizing and it's not true really, but it's not as difficult to do a vacant property if you're a stager. And I've seen some bad stages done and they're vacant. So
True.
still not all stagers are created equal in a vacant property. But I think your true talents can show with an occupied, because if a vacant takes you 7 hours to stage, an occupied same size with less furniture can also take you 7 hours to stage. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
mind blowing because you've taken less things, but you're spending more time matching things with what the client has, finding the right pieces that go with their furniture, the right colors that highlight what they already have, and also finding things, like I said, that are kid friendly or pet friendly, et cetera, et cetera. And it's also fine tuning. When you get to an occupied home, sometimes we do have to go through it in detail and fine tune and edit little things that the client would not have thought of moving. But it's all fun.
I want to ask a back end question, which I've thought about a lot of times. Uh, Even with you, I've walked into not very well kept property, if you want to keep it, say, call it that. And then I have seen you walk out of that property and it's looking fabulous. What is the worry and the expense that you have, the worst case scenario that you've experienced with, because it's the same people living in the house still, right?
What
How are you like managing the cost factor that might come with damages? And like, we don't think about it. You charge whatever, $2,500, $3,000, and you've made the whole house look like a show home. No, you can't do that to a house. If I was trying to start to set up a room, it'll cost me that much money.
That's right.
So how do you even like people don't think about it, right? Like I know that even me, I'm like, no, Fiona, I can't afford this. Lower it, lower it, lower it. But I know that I understand also, just like, you probably understand my time and my limitations. I also understand that doesn't mean just because my budget is not $5,000 or $25,000, I'm just appreciative of all the work and all the stuff that goes into actually staging a house. How do you manage that?
And that's tough, Sabia. It is tough because my goal at the end of the day is to make A, the client happy, B, the agent happy, and to get the home sold as quickly as can be, right? And that's really my goal, and that's where my heart lies. And so sometimes when it comes to the expense side of it, sometimes it might be a loss for me. Sometimes I break even. Sometimes, it's not as profitable because I'm trying to work with a budget and things happened and we have to absorb that cost. And it's all about having, again, going back to that relationship that you have with your realtor and telling them upfront or discussing it upfront. Okay, I understand this is the budget, this is what we're going to do, but also understand that, let's say if they have pets, we may have to buy things specific that has to stay at the property, right? And so once I explain and I get get everyone on board, they understand what I'm saying. One of the costs that homeowners usually have to absorb, for example, are bedding. It's something I don't like to do. I don't like to share from one property to the next to the next. That cost also goes up if every time you're constantly doing laundry for bedding and things like that. So I really try to get them to invest in neutral looking beddings that they can keep after. And then once they can keep those things, they see the value in it as well, that it's not just a cost that I'm incurring for no reason. I explain to them why, and we try to, find a medium ground as to what they can afford and so on and so forth. But a lot of times, let's say they have pets. I already know going up front, going into that property, there's a few items I might not be able to take back with me. It's going to have to leave there. So I try to build that into the cost, and we try to work as best as we can. Sometimes an agent has a little bit more leeway in one property over another. And if we're working together solely, then I'm not really worried about that because they're always going to come back and there's another opportunity for us to do business. And maybe what they couldn't make up in that one property, maybe they'll make up in this one, right? So even if it's just a couple $100 extra, it makes a difference. And it's going right back to discussing and having that open relationship with both the clients and the agent as well. But at the end of the day, if we got to absorb the costs, sometimes things
Yeah.
break too at the property, right? We don't expect that. Clients will offer to pay for it. They do. If it's substantial, sure. If it's just, a $10 item, it's like, no issue. Don't worry about it. Just let me know what happened. Like, did something break? Is something missing? I just need to know so I can, put it in my books. That's about it.
Right. Um, like I've never had my clients pay for staging just because of what I said about like for me it's a marketing tool, a listing is. But how often do you see that kind of separation where clients pay versus realtors pay?
A good question. Most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, realtors do pay for the staging in what I've noticed, 80%. The 20% where the client does, I think they've come to some sort of agreement between them. And I've had agents who always pay for staging, and for some reason or the other, a job or two, the client will pay. For myself, to be honest, it doesn't impact me a lot. It's very similar. I discuss the terms and conditions with the client. The agent already knows my terms and conditions. We just go over fine details for that property specifically. And then once I give them the proposal, they're fine. They're okay to work with it. And then if we need to adjust it, we adjust it. but I don't really
Right.
have much of a difference dealing with homeowners versus agents that way.
Hmm. Um, I have a question which I'm going to end with, but I'm going to ask Karen Vitier is asking, what is the budget one needs to consider, and is it based on the square footage of the house or the number of rooms?
So for the budget is always going to differ from home to home. Every house is going to be unique. And we do take square footage into consideration. We also take into consideration the labor of that house. So usually when I go into a home and I've assessed a home on the consultation day, I have a very good idea if that's going to be a house that's easy to do or it is going to give us some trouble. And there's lots of reasons why it would give us trouble, right? Maybe they have kids and they weren't able to leave the house. Just having people alone in the house makes a difference as to how quickly we can get our job done. For example, if they have pets in the house and they're not able to leave the house, that also impacts how quickly we can get our job done. So I always recommend to homeowners, if they can take a few hours and vacate the home, give us the time to do our job and to set up, it's so much better, it's so much easier. But also I also gauge, sometimes they're elderly clients, and we know in advance that while they're going to do their best to declutter and move things, we still need a team to still go in and move things to certain places because they can't do it. So once we've done that consultation, really I get a good idea on the assessment as to what the budget will be based on the level of difficulty that that house will actually become. Again, things like multiple levels in those townhomes that have multiple levels, like some of them are 4 levels. They're not easy, they're not easy at all. So that will affect your budget as well. So it's really looking at each home individually, and then I would have that discussion with the agent and let them know this is what you're looking at for this home. And the question arises, we did 2 homes that are very similar in size, why is the cost different? And again, I would break it down and let them know this is the reason. Labor over here versus labor there are 2 different things.
Hmm. So this is my last question. I'll let people ask you afterwards if they have any questions. But so obviously, stager, you think of right away a listing, working with a seller. Um, what are the and are there any benefits of involving a stager when you're working with a buyer?
Still, I guess undecided about that one, Sabia. I think there could be some benefits there when you're working with a buyer. And one of the things are the stager has the eye for the place. And I think one of the most important things are layouts, room layouts. Sometimes a client, based on how a home is staged, a client will actually walk in, or a buyer will walk in and they think it's fantastic, it's great, but there are keys and tricks that we use to either minimize maybe certain flaws or highlight some really good areas in the house, and you may not actually necessarily see that. So working with someone like a stager when you're buying can be very beneficial for layout purposes. When you think about where to put that sofa, where to put that TV, how you're going to put everything in, for your family to fit and function for your family. People can't always visualize that, even though the house is staged, but it's staged a certain way, but they don't think for their family needs what they actually need. So that's where layout really, we can assist with that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the reason I've put it in there because it's a little bit similar to home inspectors are usually hired by purchasers, right? There came a point where I started talking to people about how about you do a pre-inspection, right, of a property, and then I saw it became more and more popular.
Mhm.
Because sometimes people are holding back money to put on that property because they don't have time to do a home inspection. Market is such, they have to put a firm offer, but the fear of the unknown is holding them back from actually going in there, right? Uh,
Right.
Full gears ahead. I actually sold a higher end property to one of my clients. They were very picky about a lot of things, and they were spending the money, and I think they wanted that kind of service. And the stager that I used to work with at that point, I actually took her in with them because it was very hard. It was a very small pocket that they wanted the house in. The budget was huge. They were very picky. They were like, and they had some specific stuff that they wanted to bring with them.
Okay.
So I took the stager in there and it made my deal,
Yeah.
right? Because she was able to just by, walking around, talking to them about how this is going to come there, this is where you're going to move out. And I felt that the staging that was already done in that house was very heavy, very, it wasn't doing justice to the space.
Uh-huh. Yes.
So it actually, and it was a very expensive property, and I was like very relieved after we walked out because I could feel the pressure from my clients just dissipate. They were like, yes, we can have our dining table. They had a 12 people dining table. They had
Wow.
some very specific stuff, you know, um, which was I could see that it could come there, but it was just nicer to have two of us figure that out for them. And that's exactly how they set up their home. I've been into that home many times since then.
Oh,
So yeah.
very nice.
So
And that's
there's some benefit to it. And I just wanted to share that with the realtors that just think outside the box. Sometimes your team can work in a very, very good manner for you and it can be a win-win situation for everybody.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So, guys, any questions at all, you can unmute yourself. I'm done with all my questions. Or Fiona, if you want to add something to this, please feel free, everyone. John has been kind enough to add a few lovely pictures of one of the projects that Fiona did with him for his listing, and it was successful. And John was successful in selling that property. Um, Karen is asking, what do you feel about virtual staging?
Virtual staging looks amazing. And so the thing is, if you have a vacant property, a fully vacant property, and you were to virtual stage that entire property, it looks great. The key thing that you've just won are the photos. You've got amazing photos going up in MLS, especially if it's done properly, it will look good. And I've seen some virtual stages. I am blown away as to what they can do now. It's not like before where everything looks so 2D, right? It's really nice. But the one thing, I had a client, now I have an agent actually that we've been working together for a long time, and he always stages his properties. He had this larger vacant property come up last year, and he called me and he said, Fiona, so I've got this larger property, and we actually could do the virtual staging. We don't do it ourselves, but we do outsource it. And it is something that we can provide if needed, just to answer that quick question. So he said to me, he calls me and he says, Fiona, I've got a larger property. How much would it cost? I gave him the budget. He said, you know what, honestly, I don't think that's going to fit into my budget at all. And even if you were to, make it lower, I can't see how much lower you're going to make it in order for me to afford this. So he said, I'm telling you what, I'm going to go ahead and virtual stage this property. And this is an exception. We got to do it this way this time. I said, okay, no problem. He calls me about a month later and he says, okay, Fiona, do you think you can stage that property? And I said, why? I wanted to hear what he would say. And he said, I've never done this before. And he said, I find that people are not connecting with the property. And that's the thing. You see the beautiful pictures, you run, you go, you look, but what they cannot still visualize is space. A lot of times people have a hard time visualizing space and how they're going to fit their furniture into that space. Sometimes the vacant properties show smaller than they actually are. And it's happened so many times. I go there, I look, even I think the property looks smaller or the rooms look smaller. The moment we put furniture in, wow, all of a sudden it's like, how did all this fit? I mean, I know it's going to fit, but it's still like shocking when you see it come together. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't think this would have fit so nicely and still so much space left, right? So he automatically told me, he said, I don't think I would do this again because I realized they're not connecting with the space. They're not able to visualize it, and it just makes a difference. So that's one with a vacant property. Sometimes what agents do too, they do a split. They'll stage a part of the property and maybe choose to do a virtual on another part of the property. That can also be okay, as long as your main rooms are the focus of actual staging. And then maybe sometimes people want the basement to be virtual stage, for example, so why spend money down there? And that's fine. That I can totally understand. The other one would be not so common, but virtual staging a occupied property. It still happens quite a bit, I should say, actually, but that one also I'm not a fan of, because again, you get these crisp pictures, you walk into the property, it looks nothing like it. The furniture's older, the colors are off, nothing's actually been done. And that's the thing, they think that if we do the virtual staging, they can get away with so much, but it really comes back to bite you when people start visiting the property and they see that the two don't connect. And I think that could even be worse than a vacant versus an occupied virtual staging, because it's just too far of a difference. In some cases that I've seen, that they automatically start to write it off when they go in, because it's like, oh no, this is not what I was expecting at all. Right? You're seeing two different pictures, one in person that's of one type of furniture versus what you saw online. So it's great in some cases. And I think if you focus on your main areas and you want to do, like I said, a basement or something, maybe a secondary place, that's fine.
Pretty cool. Anybody else has a question for Fiona? All right, thank you so much, Fiona, for joining us, guys. I will be sharing the recording of the session and Fiona's bio and her contact information in an email, hopefully by the next 2 days, if not tomorrow. So thank you for logging on, and thank you, Fiona, for joining in the session. And I look forward to having tons and tons of work done between the brokerage and yourself, because I really, really think that you're very talented in what you do and you do a really good job.
Thank you so much, Sabiha. Thank you for having me. And thanks to all of you for your questions. And of course, if you have questions after that you think of, you can always reach out to me as well. Okay, thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.